Good afternoon and welcome to the Township of Selwyn regular council meeting of Tuesday, February the 14th, 2023. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mishi, Sagag, and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please observe a moment of silence so the council, staff, and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. We have is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please note it in the minutes. We need a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of January the 17th, 2023, and the special council meeting of January the 26th, 2023. Moved by John Boyko, seconded by Deputy Mayor Ron Black. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Is there a discussion out of the minutes? All right, we will go to our first deputation. This afternoon, we have Ryan Huntley, who is the board chair, and Jeanette Lovey-Smith, the CAO of the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary. So, is that working? Closer to the mic. All right. Thank you, Chair, for having us today. As part of our this new term of council for everybody, we more specifically, Jeanette has made the rounds to a lot of the townships to introduce ORCA, our organization, our plans, and our openness and willingness to work together as partners. So with that, Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sorry,
You can move it down a bit, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again for having us both. Happy to be here. And again, we're going to sort of support each other through the presentation, a little bit of back and forth. So, as my board chair expressed, we're visiting all of the townships, council, and the city, and it has been a great opportunity to also introduce myself. I started with ORCA in July of 2020, following retirement. So there's us, and there's also how to get a hold of us. And this is our current board. So following the municipal election in October, this is our current board members. We have 8 member municipalities and 11 members. And some of them are returning members, are also new members. Actually, I should also just add on that slide, we had recently our annual general members meeting in January. And so at that time, we also had our chair and vice chair elections. And so the company back in that role, chair, and Mr. Metcalf is vice chair. So some good continuity in amongst of some transitions that are also happening for our organization. And this is a picture of our map of our watershed. It's always good to remind ourselves of how large our watershed is. We are actually the 17th largest watershed in Ontario. And what I do like to point out on this slide is the 10,000 acres that we do manage as a conservation. So we have lands in amongst the watershed that we do manage directly. And this is the current strategic plan that Tonopah Conservation has. It is something that the current board will be reviewing and making sure that it still works for the organization. And what I have highlighted, or what we have highlighted over the time, is that the vision and mission and key goals are still very relevant for us as an organization. So while we look at the strategic plan, we do use those vision, mission, and key goals as a touchstone still for our decisions today. And what I do like to highlight is a little bit of some of the things that kept us busy in 2022. And so, and then also taking the opportunity to reference some of the initiatives and things that we did here in Township Selwyn. So we had a busy year with our planning applications and permits. And as you can see, the township also was busy in that context. So we completed 103 planning applications and 143 permits were issued. We also did some tree planting, which is a very popular program, environmental stewardship program that we have. So we planted over 10,000 trees last year in the township. A total of about 30,000 trees were planted across our watershed. So 1/3 of those were effectively here. And we continued also with our floodplain mapping. We have more projected in 2020. So, and I'm going to just highlight that we do provide our risk management for Source Clean Water Act. And you'll be seeing us a little bit more in that context coming in 2020. And one of the things that has also kept us very busy is some capital work. Tonopah Conservation was very successful in receiving over $1 million of FedDev grant money in 2022. And that funds went to completing some work on the Jackson Creek Trail and also some new washrooms. 3 new washrooms, one here at Selwyn Beach Conservation. Really want to shout out and thank staff for working very closely with us. Those FedDev grants have a very tight timeline in terms of meeting and so successful and moving forward with those. So one of the agendas or one of the directives that the province has given all conservation authorities is around increasing their accountability and transparency with respect to their budget and financial work. So for 2023, our budget increase represents about 2.4% increase, but put in context of what our actual budget is, it's roughly a little more than $50,000. And we also link those the budget work, our financial work, to our performance objectives that are approved by the board, and also our financial quarterly report, which also includes our permit. So as you can see, quarterly, we are reporting to the board on those various activities. And also that reporting also ensures that we stay within our core mandate. At 76 performance objectives, 2022, and achieved over 7. And lastly, would you like to include a slide about apportionment? Apportionment is a new word. And right now we are operating we'll see moving forward before breaking out what we would call Title 1, know that I'm referencing a lot of things that the mayor, when she sat on the board, was a part of, in terms of understanding our programs and inventory and that work. But that really did inform the work that our budget work and the basis. I'm very grateful and thankful for the board's work and knowledge to take an easy plan to pick up and follow. And for context, this is our total operating budget, keeping in mind that this $1 billion, keeping in mind that we have a number of revenue self-generated revenues. And we also have a number of fees from that we have. And for us, we're also very grateful for those self-generated revenues on all of those categories because it does help keep the tax budget. Not all conservation authorities have other services like that. And to also again help with our budget, but also understanding our own organizational capacities. That I just recommended very modest. Realize that depth project. Ground service. How to do your in terms of so it's a very modest. And this is the breakdown of all of the 8 municipalities and their levies. First bracket trying to do the category 1. I think that's it. But I share. I
think you covered. Question.
All right. Thank you very much, Ryan and Jeanette. Before I turn it over to council for any questions, I just wanted to mention that our council just came from a half-day training of the standard of care, safe drinking water training this morning, and it was suggested that all members of council should read the source water protection plan for our municipality. I recognize that that plan is embedded in our official plan, but that official plan is some 500 pages long. So it might be helpful if you could have a copy of that plan available to the rest of council. I'm aware of it because I was on the board for 16 years. And I know Ron and John have just joined the board, so they probably haven't been given that training yet either. So if you can do that, I'd really appreciate it.
So yes, Mr. Mayor, we are very happy to provide that. On Thursday, we will have a snapshot from our board orientation on this. Providing some board orientations over a couple of sessions, and this is one of the things that we'll be talking about. And you certainly will be seeing us throughout 2020. Development.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Councillor. Are there any questions? Councillor Boyko.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you very much for that presentation. The one point and then one question. The people of Lakefield continue to be grateful to Orca because of the Imagine the Marsh property that is adjacent to the Lakefield campground that Orca has been involved with for over 25 years and helping to protect that Class A wetland that is there. So on behalf of the people of Lakefield, thank you to Orca for the continued involvement in that. I know it's a small, but it's a vital piece of property. The second thing is a question, and that is Bill 23 while I know that the regulations and the details are still coming out and that's where the devil lives, but perhaps you could comment on what Bill 23 looks like, at least at this moment, changes that will be coming to Orca and to what Orca does, or how Orca does it perhaps, that are coming as a result of Bill 23.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to try to fight this off because it is a big subject matter. And Bill 23, as we recognize, is a very comprehensive bill that touches a lot of organizations and impacts a lot of organizations, municipalities, for sure. So when I referenced the programs and inventory work that was done, that was Orca's original analysis, provided the opportunity for the original analysis that the work really needed to be, our comments and work needed to be linked to natural hazards. So really hydrology, wetlands, those types of comments and role that we play as an organization. That was actually signaled in 2019 from the province. That was the direction that they wanted conservation to go in. And so for us, when we think of all of those planning applications that I highlighted, the 379, the component that relates to natural heritage is actually very small overall work. And that is because we really did over those 2 or 3 years focus our work on natural hazards, which is the mandate, one of those core mandates that the province has given all conservation. It would be fair to say that not all conservation authorities in Ontario did that in terms of making that transition that early on. And again, it goes to the foresight that the board had at the time and that. So positioned us very well to respond or react to those moments. However, with that, we do know that our ministry has, which is the Ministry of Natural Resources, has reached out to Conservation Ontario, reached out to CAs to talk about a transition in a transition period. So Bill 23 doesn't really allow for any transitions of those things, but implementation came in pretty hard and fast. And so our ministry has given us directions to work with our member municipalities on what would be an appropriate transition plan for that municipality, realizing that each municipality is not the same as the next, and what the priorities might be with respect to individual planning applications. So that is one of the things that we are doing with our municipalities, one-on-one with them to transition that. In some cases, again, transition has been easier because some municipalities have Bill 109, which also comes into play with it. And then some municipalities are still in the discussion on what that is. So trying really hard to work together collaboratively, realizing that might look a little different for everybody. And what I can say is, again, we're really pleased. We're really lucky to have such a good relationship with the staff of the township, and we look forward to.
Thank you. Sorry.
Through your chair. The only thing I'd add to it is things like natural heritage still have to be taken into consideration, so they don't just go away. The problem now is it all about your planning department. Sure, they're
Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sanis. Again, thank you for the report. And as John and I are new directors on the board, we ask a lot of questions. So I've got a couple of questions today. You mentioned that there was 10,000 acres of property that Orca currently owns technically. Are many of those properties accessible for the public to get onto? Kawartha Land Trust, for instance, when they get properties, they have trails that are posted, that sort of thing. Are many of the Orca properties accessible or can be linked into the Kawartha Land Trust properties at some point? Outdoor walking is growing in popularity, and people are always looking for new spaces to go and take a look at. So just wondering how active those properties are from that perspective.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so the land specifically that we were referencing also are really around our conservation area that we do respond to. And yes, they are acceptable, and they need legislation. So I'm not, wouldn't be able to comment on the linking the trail systems through there, but that is something that we are open to. Whatever role might be.
Just to add. Structure.
You get on your knees.
You can lift it up. Yeah.
John. Anyway, there's a great number of properties and they are split, like there's not, like it's not 10,000 acres, obviously. So things like South Beach and Harold Town, Squirrel Creek, like they all have purposes, like Harold Town, so selling each other, really that one. So they're all sort of different purposes. Some of them are just like land. There's not really much to do with it. Watch birds. But so there's different degrees and of interaction. I like watching birds. But I believe we're also thinking for the board members. Tourism, different properties. You get to see a lot of.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Just follow up through you, Mayor. John's talked about Imagine the Marsh and the important property there, and the important property next door is the trailer park, the campground, whatever you want to call it. And we are pleased that Orca is taking over the campground, and I'm sure we'll be planning a period of time of looking at the property to see what options are there for the future and how it'll be operated, that sort of thing. So I just would really like to say that it's a little unusual. It's in a built-up area. It's in a village, which is not consistent with a lot of other properties, which are more rural. So there are a lot of neighbors around, and I would hope at some point Orca would have a meeting to talk about progress, solicit input from the neighbors as well as the campers that are there. I think that would be a positive step towards mending some relationships there that have it was a tough time for the previous council to make some decisions. So I would hope that would be part of the ongoing communication plan with Orca to meet with not only the campers but the local residences. Okay.
Thank you. Speak right into it.
All right, I'll try.
There.
Better. through you, Chair. Orca is the operator of the campground. So obviously, we as the township still own that thing. So anything that we want to do as an outreach kind of program, I think we should be doing collaboratively with you, and we'll follow the lead. We'll obviously bring our ideas and concepts. But, we don't want to overstep, as the operator, not as the human.
Right. Fair enough.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you again for your presentation and to bring us up to date. And I'm looking for a motion to receive this presentation. Moved by Councillor Koulis, seconded by Councillor Henry. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. And now we have Pam Chaloux, President of the Lakefield and District Horticultural Society. Speak right into the mic, Pam.
Yes. Yes, it doesn't. Is it projecting? Okay, it doesn't seem to be. I know. Kiss the mic. Good afternoon, Mayor Senese and Deputy Mayor Black and councillors. My name is Pam Shalou, and I'm the current president of the Lakefield Horticultural Society. This is Sylvia Strobel, and she's our vice president. The Lakefield Hort Society has existed for 61 years. It's a member of the Ontario Horticultural Association, and it is incorporated under an act administered by OMAFRA. In 2022, we had 118 members. Okay. On the right click, sorry, okay. Nope. Try it again. Okay. Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Okay. In the last 30 years, our society has developed the Centennial Garden and the Sundial Gardens in Cenotaph Park. As well, we've refurbished the garden area in front of Memorial Hall. The area beside the library is currently in their caretaking regime. 5 years ago, though, we began a pollinator garden at Isabel Morris Park. This garden made Selwyn eligible to become part of Bee City, Canada. Our volunteers plant, water, and maintain these gardens. We purchase the hanging baskets in the village and the flowers for the downtown containers, and the township crew waters these daily. Okay. Go to the next slide, please. This slide may appear to be a little startling. We wanted to somehow quantify what we contribute to Lakefield. OMAFRA and the OHA require us to support a summary of our volunteer hours annually. So in 2022, we recorded over 900 hours spent by volunteers planting, watering, and caring for gardens. Now, valued modestly at $20 per hour, this comes to $18,500. Our volunteers are experienced gardeners who bring all their own tools and often their own materials to the site. The hours indicated do not indicate the time spent fundraising to generate the money we need to beautify, nor the time spent carrying out administrative tasks. As you can see from us today, many volunteers live outside the village. Most are over 65, with a significant number of active gardeners in their 80s. Now, the financial aspect, the amount we actually spent. Last year, we purchased new containers for the village because the original ones provided by the Lions in the 80s were crumbling. So this cost, as well as the cost of the garden plants, the summer hanging baskets, constructing a wall around the Sundial Garden, that all came to over $6,000 last year. And of note that we decided that this winter we would also provide winter hanging baskets, and these have come to $1,400.
Slide, please. We know that our beautification efforts are appreciated from the many comments that we receive. And we gratefully receive the financial donations from Selwyn Township, Chamber of Commerce, and downtown merchants, all in support of our efforts to beautify city and town. We know that the attractiveness of these parks contributes to Lakefield's tourism economy. Lakefield's parks are much used, and numerous studies have found that residents' physical activity and their health are positively correlated with the maintenance, attractiveness, and safety of local parks. And you can see the ladies here, they are extremely, they very much enjoy contributing to the maintenance and attractiveness of these two parks. And I'm sorry, one gentleman. We actually have a few more gentlemen. Next slide. We also wanted to acknowledge the support of Selwyn Township staff led by Mike Irvin. Without the heavy lifting that they do, we would not be able to do as much beautification. So obviously, those heavy baskets, they take those down. They give them to the person. They water them, then they fertilize them. And that's how come they look so great. Somewhat attractive. We also appreciate their assistance on planting days and bringing mulch and compost and all cleanup days for disposing of the we have also spring air assistance. And finally, we wanted to acknowledge your support of us using the Marshland Center for our having that space. And next slide. So why are we here? Well, we wanted to remind you about what we do. We've been doing it for several decades, but we also wanted to alert you to the fact that sadly, we've had several incidents of theft over the past 3 years. So this bee house that you see in the photo here, it was stolen last year. And along with the bees, it took about 30 hours of our volunteer time to reconstruct one and reinstall it. We've also had several expensive local plants dug up and stolen.
I'm not doing it either. Can you please speak closer into the mic?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We've had several expensive focal plants stolen from the Cenotaph Garden. And despite putting notices out on social media and asking for information, the culprits were not found. So we're here today to ask if the township would consider video surveillance in both parks, as well as arranging for increased police presence, especially during the summer months in these parks. This might help discourage the vandalism. As well, it would probably support increased use of the parks by local residents who might feel more secure. So we're here to ask as well today if we can be engaged early whenever the township has plans for construction in downtown Lakefield that affects the sidewalks or the light standards or anything within the Cenotaph or Isabel Morris parks. We would like to be engaged so we can comment on what is being proposed and also to know whether it will impact our beautification efforts if we need to change anything up in a particular year. And finally, we hope that we can count on the continued support of Selwyn Township crew with some of the heavier lifting that's associated with our beautification efforts. Next slide. And okay.
I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you. I have heard it said that it takes a village to make a village. And we just wanted to show you what we as volunteers have brought to your village and how it can be continued. So I wonder if there are any questions about our presentation.
Thank you very much. Before I pass it on, I just want to thank you personally for all the hard work you do. You do make our village look beautiful. The hanging baskets are just
They are legendary.
They are.
They
They
are.
really are. And it really helps to beautify our area. And I'd like to also thank our staff because I know that they water them religiously and look after them too. So some of the requests that you've asked for, I think, are within the realm of our being able to do something, but we'd have to pass it on to staff to come back and let us know if there's anything that can be done, and if not, why not? So
Thank
we'll
you.
wait to hear about that. Thank you. And I also wanted to mention, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, I'm speaking with our sustainability coordinator, Lily Morrow, and Angela Chittick. And I would like to see Selwyn become a pollinator paradise. I think that we all want to protect our bees and our butterflies, and I know you're doing your part, but I think there's more that can be done, and there's ways of doing it without costing a lot of money. So we'll be in touch, because again, I might have jumped the gun here and said something before I should have, but I'll hear about it. Anyway,
Already on that way. Very intrigued by that. Yes.
okay. And are there any questions? Councillor Boyko?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sanis. Thank you for the presentation. I think that's terrific that we all get to know a little bit more about what you do. I think this is an example of two things. One is the power of volunteers in any community is often overlooked, and the power of your group to make our community more beautiful and a more livable place for the people who live there and for tourists who visit, I think is exceptional. It's also a great indicator of the degree to which a volunteer group and staff, township staff, can work together. And I think that's spectacular. So thank you for that. My wife, Sue, I'm coming to a question. My wife, Sue, is since 2009, has volunteered and takes care of the flowers and the plants at the Water Street Shade Shelter. And something that she talks about when she comes back in the summer, she's there almost every day needing to water and things and weed, and says, I've had another 3 plants stolen. And she's down and out of her pocket replacing. And when I hear about the plants that are stolen, and Mike, I think it was you that made the that got stolen. Do you have an estimate of how much is stolen? If we are going to be talking about the possibility of putting up mitigation efforts to try to reduce the amount of theft, do you have can you put even a guess of a number of how much is stolen each season?
Okay, well, the actual plant material stolen might be something like $100, $150 within a year, or perhaps less than that. And except for the bee house that was stolen, somebody actually came and unscrewed it from the base. They knew what they were doing, but that we estimate at 30 hours would cost like hundreds of dollars. It was a unique structure because it's full of pieces of wood that all have multiple drilled holes in them. So it required a lot of time. So that was very costly and probably will not be replaced again. Although my husband has a plan to, if somebody comes and cuts off the post, there is concrete inside this time. So they're gonna be surprised.
Make them work for it. There you
But
go.
as your wife knows, it's not, you can't replace a plant that has grown for 2 months. It's already reached a certain height, and you can't just put a new plant in there. And so it's the discouragement aspect, I think, that makes you say, well, we're not going to replace it this time, and maybe we're not going to do it again, kind of thing. But yeah, it's how we feel about it mostly.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Koulis.
Through you. And it's nice to put faces to the name of the organization. I know you've been talking mainly about your group, but to what extent do you work with other groups in the area, whether horticultural or other, to do your work?
Could you repeat that last question? Sorry. Working with others, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious to what extent you work with other groups to meet your mandate or your goals.
So our horticultural society is one of 17 societies that belong to something called District 4, and it goes all the way from the lakefront up to Minden, actually. So we get together with them 2 or 3 times a year, and there's a lot of interaction with them. Like, for instance, the Ennismore Society is another fabulous society in this area with, different focal points from us, but we certainly work with them. A few years ago, I was an assistant director, so I traveled to a lot of the horticultural societies. So the bottom line is we do know a lot about them. We communicate regularly with them. Hopefully this year we'll be able to attend a convention, which includes all of the societies all the way across Ontario, which is about 30,000 members. The pandemic interrupted so much, and we are just getting back to normal this year. I've given Angie, we just had a bookmark printed of what our events are going to be this year. So we share a lot.
I'm just curious because if you're working with other groups, that's also other volunteer hours that you can take into consideration, like if they're on site in those places helping with the planting, or just dollar values to add to your assessment that we may be overlooking
If you want
here.
to know the truth, I brought them all for you.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, so in order to raise the money, and I think we've gotten really good at raising money because we're not here asking for money. In order to raise money, we spent almost 600 hours last year, and that is largely involved with we share our garden plants. We get together 2 weeks ahead of time. And then we pot them as a group at one of our members who is sitting over here, Wendy Best. And then she nurtures them for 2 weeks, and then we bring them to the cenotaph and sell them. So that's 600 hours to raise approximately $3,000 to $4,000. We also last year, for the very first time, had a garden tour organized by Diane over here. And that involved another lot of hours. Our executive, we have an executive of 12 members, and our meetings take up 300, 400 hours, and the responsibilities involve probably 600 hours. Bev Thompson here is sitting there. She comes and looks at the cenotaph garden every day and reports on what's happened to it. And literally she's coming from, Peterborough to do that. And then 900 hours planting. And then there were a number of other hours amounting to about 500, which involve media, newsletters, and other things. So in total, our group has targeted 3,200 hours, volunteer hours. And I think it's a good idea that OMAFRA asks for this. They ask for it because they give us an annual grant of $1,000, which they do to all horticultural societies. So they want to feel justified in some way that we're giving that to the community.
Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. I won't repeat a lot of the good words that have been said about your organization, but I think it's pretty clear when you go through Lakefield that there's a lot of work done there, and working with the staff has been great. I think that's a wonderful relationship. We have some excellent volunteer organizations, as you said, in the community horticultural societies in Bridgenorth and Innismore, and I've always been a firm believer in volunteerism, and I believe for every dollar that you raise, you put $10 worth of work into your event or whatever you're preparing. So I was looking at our CIP grant information this morning, knowing the presentation was coming today. Are horticultural societies eligible for the landscaping portion of those grants, or if not, can we consider that as a way of supporting some of their financial needs each year?
So the horticulture societies, I guess, projects would be on public property, so they wouldn't be eligible for a grant. We would work with them as a township property, just on whether we had any funding or trying to find a grant to partner with them on a project. So one of the ideas that we just recently came up through DOT, we had a sign that was damaged during the Jericho storm on Water Street. So we'd look for a grant on public property, and then hopefully we could partner with the Horticulture Society to repair that.
So this is a follow-up. So the I'm not sure what legislation around CIP precludes anything that's on public property from participating, or is that our bylaw?
It's the way the program is set up. So the program is set up to provide a grant to businesses.
Businesses, right? Okay, thank you.
I see no,
One more.
Councillor Boyko.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is coming to Mike. fair warning. So one of the points that you raised, and I don't want it to get lost, is you said that when there are plans afoot for Isabel Morris Park or the Cenotaph Park, that you would like to be involved. And I know that Mike and I had a conversation about that. So Mike, maybe you could talk about the involvement with the Horticultural Society and others that I know are working with you for specifically, I'm talking about plans for the Cenotaph Park.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, that would be a prime example. We got approached by the by Michael Chappell with the, and I always get them confused, Trent Valley and Historical, I believe it's Historical Society. And as soon as he contacted us, we contacted them to set up a joint meeting so that we could, well, we met with him on site to see what he was talking about, to see if there'd be any impact whatsoever. And immediately Mark contacted the Hort Society to let them know and set up a joint meeting so we could have a talk long before it ever became a concrete plan or even, you know, something we might be able to move forward with. So that's kind of how we try and handle everyone. When we get the first call, we try and suss it out and then immediately involve the partners. And certainly this group is as much and probably more than any group has been very, very involved, whether it's the annual baskets, which get more compliments than I think almost anything else in our township, and right on through the plant sales and the various events like that. So yeah, that would be a prime example. It's sort of more of a one-off because there's all sorts of regular communication and regular interaction, but that was definitely a bit of an unusual one.
Right. Thank you. So I see that as a continuation on another example of the partnership between the Horticultural Society and staff that is very strong and essential. So thank you for raising that.
And thank you for meeting together. And we have met with Mike Chappell and convinced him of an appropriate place. I know he wants to erect a monument eventually, and they have cited a place. So that's good. We're happy with that. Thank you very much, John, for realizing that.
All right, I see Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sanis. Having operated the Polar Fest ice sculpting competition, I know what it's like to put a lot of work into things to come back the next morning and see it destroyed. It can be very disheartening. Have you contacted the Lakefield Police Services? Because many of the businesses do have video cameras and they have a list of the people that have video cameras so that they can use them as a resource in the meantime, because this will be a bit of a process, obviously.
I believe whenever these thefts have happened, and it was probably 2 or 3 times last year, we always first contacted Mark, the crew manager, and he contacted the police services, and the eventual answer was, oh, we can't do anything about it, or we don't know anything about it. So that's all. That was the feedback we received. And then we always also always communicated with Terry at the Herald, because he's very interested in supporting us too. And we usually send some kind of inflammatory message, the letters to the editor, and yeah. So those have been our only 2 recourses, really.
Thank you.
All right.
You know, perhaps with the police station in the new location, do you think they would have video surveillance at the police station? Because that's a key spot. That park in the summertime, if you go there on market day, it is used by so many people. And you know, much of the abuse doesn't happen when everybody's there. And we're so lucky in Lakefield that we've never had any issues with our parks the way they're experiencing in Peterborough. But you know, it could happen in Lakefield, and we have to be aware of the times. And I know when my daughter took her children to the skate park, she would often see clusters of older boys over in the playground, and they were exchanging drug deals. So there's considerations here, and it's more than about our plants, which are just, an inconvenience and a disheartenment for us.
I have to say that you're not the only ones experiencing this. The geraniums that are in the buckets in Buckhorn, they have, it seems every year someone comes along with a truck and takes the whole bucket away with all the geraniums in it after all the work they've done and the expense. So yes, it is disheartening, and unfortunately it's a sign of the times. And we can only hope that things improve. But I thank you very much for your presentation and for your coming today and for all the work you do. And I'm looking for a motion to receive it. Councillor Boyko, Councillor Henry, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are a little late in our public meeting. We'll just take a moment to let everyone depart. Thank you. All right, so I am going to ask the planner to announce the purpose of our public meeting, which is to do with the housekeeping amendment comprehensive zoning bylaw. Per.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Township of Selwyn is holding a public meeting today to consider a township initiated amendment to our comprehensive zoning bylaw. This is a housekeeping amendment. This is in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. The prescribed notice of public meeting was provided through a notice in the Peterborough Examiner. This notice meets the requirements of the Planning Act. The notice was also provided by email to prescribed ministries and agencies. The notice was also available on the township website along with the draft amendment. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submission to the Township of Selwyn before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the council of the township to the Ontario Land Tribunal, nor can a person or public body be added as a party to a hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The Planning and Building Department brought this matter to council on January 17th. And so the resolution was to bring this forward for public meeting today. So we had a more of an in-depth discussion about the content of the amendment on the previous council meeting. So I won't go into that kind of detail today, but for any of the public that may be listening in, I'll just go through sort of a summary of what there's 13 matters that are being addressed through this amendment. One is utility sheds and the size of utility sheds in our bylaw being increased to 15 square meters in accordance with recent changes to Ontario Building Code. We're changing our building height measurement from midpoint to peak height, and that's being addressed in this amendment. Likewise, accessory structure heights are being adjusted to reflect the change in height, as well as principal dwellings and structures. We're removing a half-story definition that's both confusing for our planning and building department as well as the public. Shed locations for lakeshore residential zones is being amended to be only in the front, or in addition to being permitted elsewhere, they're also going to be permitted in the front yard. We're introducing a minimum parking requirement for self-storage facilities. We're clarifying our requirement regarding accessible parking spaces to be consistent with the Ontario Regulation 191-11 pursuant to the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. We're just changing a little bit the definition regarding parking area design in rural residential and residential zones in general. We're introducing just a refreshment vehicle zoning reference in our zoning bylaw that hasn't previously been there, just to make a clear connection to our refreshment vehicle bylaw through our zoning bylaw. We're removing the attic definition, again, just to reflect the earlier removal of the half-story definition. We're clarifying the R1's zone dwelling unit area minimum requirements. We're clarifying the regulation regarding interior side yard setbacks in the R1 zone. And we're introducing some regulations to permit shipping and containers to be utilized as utility sheds. And those are the issues that are presented in the draft amendment. There was some council feedback at last council meeting that we have addressed through the current amendment that was available for public review. And we've also received comment from only two public agencies, being Peterborough Public Health and Enbridge, and they have no concern with the amendment. And that's what I have for you, barring any questions.
All right, thank you. And I have to ask, there were no proponents that were in favor of or opponents that were opposed to this that you received at all?
I've received no comment other than the two I mentioned that had no concern.
Okay, just for the public record.
Yeah.
And I will now bring it to council. Are there any questions? So what we have before us right now is a recommendation that we receive the information that has been given, that we consider the input received, and that the final draft housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment will be brought forward for passage at our February the 28th, 2023 council meeting. Can I have someone move that, please? Moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Question period. Were there any questions?
No questions.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our municipal officers and staff reports, and we have Lane Vance, our Manager of Financial Services, with the final adoption of the budget and PSAB compliance report. Lane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this is the last step of our tax budget journey for this year. Just a housekeeping report essentially shows items that are not included in the cash-based budget that was approved by council. So it goes through a compliance report of adjustments plus or minus, definitely how the reserves are handled. And it's more to do with tangible capital assets and some of the changes that PSAB made there, and the write down of those assets with respect to amortization. But it's more of a housekeeping report that's required under Ontario Regulation 284-09. And I could answer any questions council may have.
Are there any questions? Deputy Mayor Black.
Yeah, just with regards to the amortization, I mean, it clearly doesn't make any difference to us as the type of organization that we are. What's the purpose of that exercise, you think, with the PSAB?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Well, as tangible capital assets came online, there's obviously the need to write those down. Where it's going to become more apparent is when council debates the issue of levels of service and fully funding capital assets. So I think what council will see, at least what has happened across the province, as this has been debated, is that the actual write down or the amortization, a lot of folks look to that to fund future assets. And quite often that is well below what is required for future assets. So because of the fact that amortization is based on historical costs, we need to look ahead for replacement costs. So I think PSAB's requirements basically start the process of looking at those replacements of assets, get council to focus on the write down, and then it isn't as much of a shock when we realize how much money we really do need to set aside for the future.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the write down is not going to be in the same proportion as the future costs with inflation over that period. The write down is a straight line depreciation annually, right? So,
That's correct.
All right, are there any other questions? Then I'm looking for someone to move the recommendation that the report be received. Council adopt the budget compliance report for expenses excluded from the 2023 budgets as outlined in and as a requirement of Ontario Regulation 284-09, and the council adopt the 2023 taxation budget as presented and discussed on January the 26th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Koulis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And we will now move on to our next item on the agenda, which is town hall meetings. Ms. Chittick.
Thank you. Yeah, so just wanted to provide a report to council about the town hall meeting format. Because 4 of our members are new, this will maybe be a little bit new for you folks. We did start incorporating town hall meetings in 2013. And just to be clear, this is entirely discretionary. It's something that the council can choose to do, but it's not a requirement. Just kind of outlined the format that was held for the town hall meetings and some things that worked well. Initially, it was really set up to provide more of an informal opportunity for residents to interact with council members outside of kind of the formality of the council chambers. So that was the purpose around it. So we're I'm not going to go through the report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding the format. We're just looking for council's feedback on whether you do wish to move forward with a town hall meeting in this term. I would say if you do decide to do that, it's always been the practice not to have any type of town hall meeting during the election year for obvious reasons. So that would be that year there wouldn't be anything scheduled. You can decide, to move forward with the town hall meeting this year, and then we can kind of determine what you want to do next year if you didn't like the format or if you wanted to do something different. So a lot of flexibility there. The other change, of course, with COVID, we're all very familiar with using Zoom now. That wasn't something that we had done in the past. They'd all been in person. So that is another opportunity that is available to council that you could just do a virtual format, and essentially it is just open for anybody to participate. So happy to take any questions that you have.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sanis. Well, how was turnout for these events?
It was, I would say, it was hundreds of people. I think the one of the sessions we maybe had 25. The session that we had here in the Smith Ward was probably our least attended. We maybe had, I don't know, eight or nine. Yeah. So yeah, not great numbers.
Usually it's a testament to how the community feels that council is doing. If they thought we were on the wrong track, we'd have a room full of people. And so we looked at that as the fact there weren't a lot of people, that they were happy with the direction we were taking. It can be a little frustrating when you hold a town hall meeting and 5 people show up, because you schedule it for 2 hours and you're sitting there looking, you're trying to pass the time of that 2 hours. And you've publicly said that it was a 2-hour window. So you're there. Yeah. I think it's a good idea to have one meeting for the whole township. We did one time have a meeting in each of the wards, and I think we should do whatever we can to continue the message that we're a community, rather than break it into a ward by ward thing. And when we did do that, again, there wasn't a lot of attendance, and the people who went to the first meeting came to the second meeting and came to the third meeting. And so the questions that got asked were the same ones that had been asked previously. So we're looking for your direction as to what a town hall meeting, but I think it's worthwhile to have at least one. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you through you, Mayor Sanis. I think it's a good idea. And I agree that it should be one meeting per year, but we could rotate it through the 3 wards. Have it here 1 year, Ennismore 1 year, you know, that sort of thing, and Lakefield 1 year. But because I do agree that we have to be Selwyn Township and not individual wards, but I think it's important to offer it. I think we have an excellent social media presence now that we maybe didn't have a few years back. That can get the word out maybe a little better. Not that it wasn't. I went to one of them and I did find it, so that was good. But I think if we can set a schedule up well enough in advance for the next 3 years, basically, and where they're going to be, and start using social media sooner, we might get some better attendance as well. But I think it's a worthwhile doing.
Councillor Koulis.
My button doesn't work. I'm in agreement. I think we should start up with at least 1 a year, likely here in Smith. But I think there needs to be a focus on it. I don't know if it should just be an open forum. I think there needs to be some direction, whether it's educational being the first one, where it's a 2-way street. We provide information about what's going on. Because town halls at provincial and federal levels are very party driven, mandate driven, where we're trying to avoid that here, right? But I think the best way to bring people into the marketing is to provide them with the direction of where we're going, because that will also, like, they're a double-edged sword, right? You want to be there and present, but you also don't want to be criticized. And you want to have the resources. So the second part of that was that in the report that we got, it said that staff were not to be directly involved in the conversation, but I think we need that, because especially with 4 or 5 being new, we don't know all the answers. And I don't want to go away with saying, we'll get back to you on 20 different items. So.
Okay. Councillor Boyko.
I too agree that we should have town hall meetings at least once a year. And I also agree that there should be one with respect to an issue, which is what Councillor Koulis is talking about. I refer back to the meeting that was held recently with our member of provincial parliament. He said that he wished to speak about housing in Lakefield. He had at least 40 or 50 people in the room, with at least, I don't know, a dozen or more turned away at the door. So if there is an issue of concern, such as housing in Lakefield, we'll get more than 5 people. So I think that we should have one, because we are one community, at least one town hall meeting a year. And I like the idea of moving it from ward to ward. This place is not the least bit intimidating to me, but it could be to other people, where if they're going to come to their local, well, whatever, wherever we feel it's in their community, they're more likely to show up than to show up here. And if that town hall meeting is held, I would like us also to be able to hold another town hall meeting over a specific issue. The development in Lakefield South as an example, where we say when it is appropriate, when we have something to talk about. Right now, everything is still in process, but when there is something to talk about, that we open it up and we are able to say, here is what is coming. Tell us what you would like to talk about. Those types of meetings are valuable. And I think the meeting with Mr. Smith showed that there is interest in that. So I support the report that we should have town hall meetings. There should be one Selwyn Town Hall meeting held in one of the various communities over the next 3 years.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, when we had the meeting here, council was sitting right in front of the people. We weren't sitting in our chairs, and it was very informal. And people who came didn't feel intimidated. So there are ways to
Yeah.
set it up so that it doesn't
No,
scare people.
I understand, but just the building itself, and I agree, it should be, we're sitting in a circle.
The other thing is we should probably talk about when it would be advantageous to have this town hall meeting and on what day. Because there are a lot more of our residents here during the summer that don't necessarily live here full time, but are up here. And a Saturday morning is when a lot of people would be inclined to maybe take the time and spend an hour with their council members. So I don't know what you think about that, but Deputy Mayor Blatt.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Sanis. No, I think that's the right idea. We do have, particularly in our township, a lot of seasonal people who pay a lot of taxes, and I think it's important that they have the opportunity to do it in person. And we may have to look at hybrid as well, where people can zoom into it as well and ask questions as an option. I'm a little concerned about using the chamber here. I'm not sure it's big enough with COVID. I know I went to the Ennismore one a few years back, and there was probably 30 people there. And that would fill almost every chair in this room. So just from I think we'll have to consider the pandemic situation at the time and making sure people are spaced as well.
I think we could definitely use the Bridge North Community Hall for the Smith ward. That shouldn't
Right.
be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have enough information to?
Yeah.
come
So
back
I
with
just
something?
want to, so if we're in agreement, we'll do one in each ward. So you mentioned Mary starting in Smith. Is that okay? So maybe if we did Smith, Ennismore, Lakefield, is that fine? Okay. And then, sorry,
One in each ward, you mean in a year?
in a year, sorry.
No, I
Yes.
don't think that's what they meant. I think they meant have one per year
Yes. Yes.
and move it around.
Yes. So this year it would be Smith.
Okay.
The following year would be Ennismore, and the following year would be Lakefield. Sorry, maybe I didn't say that correctly.
Councillor Koulis?
This button. I'm just wondering, is there any things coming up in the next 3 years where it'd be more advantageous to do in specific wards? So like the CIP for Ennismore, is that in the third year when we're going to see the most development around that?
That project could potentially be in 2024, 2025. And just on that note, anything that we do a specific project for, or there's a planning matter, we would have specific meetings around those topics. So this isn't intended to circumvent any of that. So if we were to move forward with the CIP in Ennismore, we would likely have some open houses specifically for that and make sure that affected property owners were specifically invited to something like that. That's not to say that some of those topics wouldn't come up at a town hall meeting, but like a planning application, a project that we were doing would be the subject of a completely separate meeting. So, I'm thinking it looked like Saturday morning was sort of a time frame. Now, would you prefer June or July? And just based on that, then I could propose some dates. We could take a look at the calendar, propose some dates, and then we would come back to council and have you formally adopt them. So
Sounds like a plan.
would your preference be June or July?
Yeah, I think July.
July. Okay. We'll take a look at July. And maybe just on that's a good point, Sherry. I think in terms of scheduling the time, maybe we'll schedule it for an hour and a half, because if we go longer, that's fine. But yeah, if you're sort of waiting because you don't want to close the door on
Been there,
somebody who
done
might
that.
come
Yeah.
5 minutes ahead. Okay. It would be an in-person meeting. A lot of the locations, we wouldn't be able to do a hybrid live streaming. But we'll try to make sure that when we're advertising, if people have questions that they want to submit, we'll make sure that there's a forum that they could do that. We could raise the matter on their behalf. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I need someone to receive the report? Councillor Henry and Councillor Boyko, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the water and wastewater future operations. And Janice, we had training this morning, so I'm not sure if you're going to get a lot of questions or maybe none at all. We'll see.
Great, thank you. And I hope the training was good. It typically is good training through Walkerton, but I'll be looking forward to hearing your feedback on that. Yeah, so thank you. As you'll probably recall, as part of our I'm seeing lots of smiles, so I'm really curious to hear about the training.
I think you got your answer.
Yeah, I think so. As part of our 2023 work plan, one of the items we had to bring forward was considering the future service delivery model for our water and wastewater services, and certainly that impacts the village of Lakefield and Woodland Acres. Those are our only serviced areas in the municipality. So this report is really intended to be the first step in those discussions. I believe, as everybody knows, we've had an agreement in place with PUSI. It's been a little more than 20 years now since we've had that agreement in place. It's served us well. I think it's provided a good level of service to the community over that time. And certainly we've had continuing and ongoing compliance with all of our regulatory requirements. Prior to that contract being in place, the systems were operated in-house by Village of Lakefield staff. That that applies to the village. In Woodland Acres, it was a contract with Aqua at one point in time. The change occurred really around the time of amalgamation, and also at the time that there was a significant change in provincial regulation around operation of water treatment systems that really came out of the Walkerton inquiry. Justice O'Connor's report. So at that point in time, the depth of resources that was available through this contract really was important and helped us to navigate those changes in a positive way. Certainly since that time, as with all areas of our service, we've had increased demands, increased regulatory requirements, financial and development pressures, increased focus on our operations and our capital maintenance programs, making sure that we're maximizing our efficiencies and maximizing the benefits of any of our capital investments through our operational activities as well. In 2017, prior to 2017, I think we recognized that we needed a little bit more expertise in-house to help monitor with that contract. So we did create the position of project coordinator, water and sewer, who was Adam for all those years until his recent promotion to our manager of public works. And I think that position really helped us to better monitor the contract and respond to some of the challenges that were coming forward. We've made progress on our asset management requirements, moving forward with some capital projects, and certainly encouraging more regular and thorough communications with the operating authority to kind of take a look at the service, identify and respond to issues, and just have more information in our hands to manage. And in 2020, again, funded through the province's municipal modernization funding, we did undertake a water and wastewater service delivery review. It was completed by ORIS. At the end of the day, that report really did conclude that transitioning back to an in-house delivery of water and wastewater services would provide benefits to the township in terms of that ability to have some more direct control and accountability over the systems. And they did conclude as well that we would be able to find some operational savings there as well, some financial savings by transitioning to in-house service delivery. I would say that the experience we've had over the years, having Adam's position in place, has really supported that conclusion. I think it would provide us with more opportunity to maximize the effectiveness of our capital investments and other efficiencies through operational processes, improve preventative and capital maintenance programs, and just really allow us to achieve a responsive, efficient, and effective operation that's really well integrated into our asset management planning and our long-term planning for growth. We really are into a much more active growth scenario now than we were back in the early 2000s. So I think it's really important for us to make sure that your day-to-day operations, you can notice things in your day-to-day operations that if you have the full the big picture, you recognize how things in day-to-day operations can ultimately impact your long-term planning and your capital program. So I think that would be a big benefit. Certainly in conversation with some of my counterparts, one in particular in the county of Peterborough, who has just recently done this transition. They went from contract to in-house service delivery, and they're very, very pleased with the results that they've seen. And I think there would be some opportunity with some of our local municipalities to share some resources as well, to provide some efficiencies and some of the more administrative side of the service, and find some efficiencies and savings for all. So I think the other point would be that if with an in-house service, it kind of would eliminate that uncertainty that's always out there when you have that contract, and there could potentially be decisions made at another level that really you have no control over, that really could have a fairly significant impact on your operation. So I think that's an important consideration as well. So overall, just considering all of that information, it really would be my recommendation that it is the time for us to consider bringing the delivery of water and wastewater services back in-house. I think we've strengthened our resources over the past number of years, first with the project coordinator position, and now with our manager of public works position, with Adam at the helm, having some real good expertise and knowledge in that service area. So really, at the end of the day, what this report is recommending, that you would direct staff to bring you back another report that would give you a very fulsome outline of what a transition plan to taking these services back in-house would look like, and of course, some financial analysis to go along with that.
All right, so I don't know if there are any questions. We're all just thinking $4 million in jail time. Anyways, are there any questions for our CAO? Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. So we're talking about the Lakefield situation primarily here. Are we also talking about Woodland Acres? Do we have I lived there many, many years ago, 30 years ago, but do we have equipment there, or is it just a pipe from the city and a pipe out, or do we have actually pump houses and stuff there still?
Yeah, so we own the distribution and collection systems,
Right.
and they are connected to the city of Peterborough.
But we don't have a pump house, or?
Yes, we do.
We do.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
are responsible for
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
At this point, and PUC is,
Yes,
it's not Aqua anymore down there? Okay. So we'd be assuming both systems?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I need someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Henry, Councillor Boyko, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we will move on to consent items. Is there anything that anyone would like pulled? Sorry? Oh. Okay. So if no one wants anything pulled, I need someone to move the items 5A to 9 petitions. Moved by Deputy Mayor Black, seconded by Councillor Koulis. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And now we will go to other new and unfinished business. Does anyone have anything? No? Okay. Down to bylaws, and I guess you have a conflict of interest?
Yeah, I didn't read it right. Sorry. I, Mary Koulis, have an indirect pecuniary interest related to section 11A, 2023-011 appointments to library board.
All right. Would you like to stay? Okay. All right. I need someone to move bylaw 2023-011 appointment to the library board of Donna Hayes, Rosellen Hickey, Barbara Jinkerson, Andy Mitchell, Catherine Prasma, and Lisa Unimitsu. Actually, I'm not on that. Oh, okay. Just checking. Moved by Councillor Boyko, seconded by Councillor Henry. All in favor? That's carried. I'm looking for a confirming bylaw. Moved by Deputy Mayor Black, seconded by Councillor Henry. All in favor? That is carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Henry, Councillor Koulis, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much.